live in Raleigh, so drove down last night. I started BlogCon when I was living in DC with FreedomWorks about 3 years ago now, and we did a series of national events where we brought together state and national level bloggers from all over the country. We did DC, Denver, Charlotte, and it's kind of evolved now. I transferred over to the Franklin Center last year. So my first event with Franklin Center was a joint BlogCon event with FreedomWorks, and now we've kind of moved on into other things. I'm now, like we know, with the Franklin Center, and I work on my own doing online outreach, blogger development type things. So I do a lot of social media training and investigative reporting training and all of those things that fit into that, because I truly believe that there is a larger gap between the information that exists and the people that are receiving the information than there ever has been, which is ridiculous because we have every tool in the world to get that information, and most of you are sitting right in front of your computers right now and can access all of it. So that's huge, and that is what we do. The Franklin Center has been around since 2009, so we're a relatively new group. We have two branches. One is a professional journalism wing, so we focus on state-level reporting across the country, and we have professional journalists in about 40 states now that cover state politics. And we've done a lot of really good work, and we're growing and changing all the time, and that part is really exciting. Last year, Eric Telford, who used to be with Americans for Prosperity, launched a program with the Franklin Center called Citizen Watchdog. And through Citizen Watchdog, what we do is this. We train people to get information and to distribute that information and become information activists. So it's changing the narrative through investigative reporting. And we've trained thousands of activists since last year, and it's a really exciting program. Bruce is a part of that initiative. We have a site called Watchdog Wire, and Watchdog Wire exists to be a platform. So how many of you guys have a blog? Okay, that's kind of what I expected, 2 of you. Most of you don't, and that is totally okay. How many of you have information and send emails and are interested in getting stories out to people but don't necessarily have the back end to do that? Most of you. That's why you're here. Watchdog Wire is a website that you can contribute to. And we're getting ready to launch our South Carolina portal. Our North Carolina portal already exists. So those are there. That platform exists for you to submit content, and we have an editor that'll publish it for you. So if you're interested in becoming a contributor at the end, I can tell you how to do that. It's a really exciting program. And Bruce is our North Carolina editor, so we drag him around a lot. He'll actually come to Arizona with us in a few days, so yay! But this is all really exciting, and I'm so glad you guys are here. When Karen called, I was like, absolutely, we'll come down and I'll talk to these people and we'll get them going. So the way this is going to run, I actually printed out agendas, but I had a huge printer fail and they're basically a complete mess. So I don't want to hand them out, but basically we're going to cover basics of citizen journalism and some online resources that you guys can use to get public records, to get information, to file FOIA requests and those kind of things.
Tabitha?
Yes?
Is everyone in here connected? Do you know how to connect to the internet?
Which one do we connect to?
Can you tell them?
Library.
I just connected to library. There's no password required.
Some
So,
of them don't even have, like, go to the bottom.
yeah, every computer's going to be different, but if you go to your Wi-Fi thing where you connect and find your network, the library network is an open network.
Which one that comes up, home network? What
Library.
network? It didn't say there's a library.
I would say public. Yeah. Yes. I think you're okay.
Yeah, you got your bars. You got your bars. Okay. So we're going to cover the citizen journalism piece. Then we have Rick Brundrett of the nerve.org coming to talk for a little while. Then Senator Tom Corbin will be here for lunch. And then we're going to spend the afternoon talking social media. So Bruce and I will dive into Twitter and Facebook and blogging and whatever you guys want to know. So that I'm going to let largely be driven by you. So if you want to think of questions, anything that you guys have struggled with, getting things started, I mean, we have plenty of time to get into the nuts and bolts and doing walkthrough stuff and showing you guys specifically how to set stuff up on Twitter and so other social media platforms. So That's kind of our outline for the day, and I'm going to go ahead and get started here on the investigative reporting piece. This is actually a site that you guys can access. It was set up for a North Carolina training, but most of the resources cover almost every state. So texaswatchdog.org/NC. Trent Siebert was our investigative reporting trainer, and so he used to set these up for every training he did. This is a great resource and just has a list of all of the stuff I'll be talking about in the next hour or so. So texaswatchdog.org/NC, and I'll show you a couple other things that are more South Carolina specific. How many of you know what FOIA is? The Freedom of Information Act. Okay, most of you, that's good. Freedom of Information Act basically allows you to request public records from any state, local, or federal government entity. So anything that you want to get, you basically can get, and you have to file a request for. Writing a FOIA letter can be a little daunting. How do you start one? I don't know. But if you go to the FOIA letter generator, and if you forget this site or lose it, you can just Google FOIA letter generator. This literally will do it all for you. I wonder if we can make this a little bigger. Karen, can we make this a little bigger? I feel like we can't really see it very well.
I do not know.
Is there somebody that can help us? Oh, it is. Okay. I'm going to play with that for a minute, Bruce. Okay. It's okay. The FOIA letter generator. So it's rcpf.org/FOIA, FOIA. And so you can file an appeal letter here, a request for a letter for your own files under FOIA, and that's where you're going to want to go. If you want to go by state, if you're filing for something specific in South Carolina, that's okay. Down at the bottom it says state. And there's a little drop-down menu here. Go to South Carolina, select, and it'll take you right here. So instructions, fill in the relevant information, agency information, records sought. It'll walk you through, and you click on whatever you want. And at the end, so let's say we want to do personal information. So you'll fill in your name, your address, whatever your address is, your phone number, agency information. So who are you writing to? Who do you want this to go to? Type that in. Records sought. So if you're looking for a budget, you're looking for contracts, you're looking for collective bargaining, union contracts, all of those are going to be public. If they're with the school district, whatever, those are all public records that you can FOIA. So you can generate that here. Say I want to go, tell it right here, I request copies of, and this tells you the section and code, everything here. So if you want to request, say you want to request collective bargaining records, right here it gives you the statutes, and you can paste those in. Write it, I request copies of collective bargaining contracts for whatever Spartanburg's school district is called. Put that in, per statute, da-da-da-da-da. Fees, you have to pay a reasonable fee for a FOIA request. A reasonable fee is what it costs to print those records. So you can argue that 25 cents is too much because it doesn't cost 25 cents to print one piece of paper. But they're able to charge. If they're going to charge you $50 for a request, that's way too much, and you're allowed to file an appeal, which this walks you through as well. But keep in mind, they're probably going to request some form of payment. It's probably going to be very, very, very minimal. So fees, explain here, if you want a waiver, you can request a waiver. Or if you want to set a limit, say I'm not willing to pay more than $5 for this. I know I'm requesting a lot of paper, but no more than $5. And then you submit it, it'll send the letter to them, and you're set. Yes? Where did it go? Sorry. What?
How used to a FOIA request are entities that are smaller than state government? So are school boards used to getting requests like this, and are town councils used to getting requests like this?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and they're required to know, and they're required to post the information in their offices. Any public entity, even if they're small, has to be able to do this. They have to make them accessible. It's
How long does it take to?
Usually they'll give you a period of up to 5 days or so. That you have to give them a reasonable amount of time to process. I mean, if you're going in asking for very specific things, and you want to be as specific as you possibly can. You don't want to go in and say, I want every correspondence the principal has had for the last year. I want every, or not the principal, but superintendent. You can't do that because that's just too broad, it's too big. But say you're looking for a specific interaction between a superintendent and a union leader. You can go in and say, I want every correspondence, between this period and this period between these two people. You can go in and say, I want the contract for this superintendent specifically. I want this contract for this union leader. I want, and break that down and give them as specific information as you can. The more specific it is, the faster it's going to be. If you ask them for a ton of information and it's just so broad, they can kick it back to you and say, you know what, this is just not reasonable. We can't give you, all of this information. So keep in mind that you have your mission in mind and know what it is before you go in and generate this letter and look specifically for what you want. You want to be able in these little description sections to narrow it down and say, I specifically want this per this statute, and it'll give you all of the statutes, everything, right through here. Does anybody have questions on FOIA? I know that's kind of broad, but Google FOIA generator. It's rcpf.org/FOIA, and any public record can be FOIA'd, and you can submit the request right through this site. Does that help? Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool, right? Absolutely. I don't have to do any work. It gives you all of that for you, and you can do it specifically by South Carolina statutes, which I think is pretty awesome. So that's your first resource, and probably one of the most important things you can do. A lot of people don't know that they have access to that information. It's pretty cool. And if it's something that's too sensitive, they'll redact it, which, if you're getting into something that's a little more sensitive, they'll redact, phone numbers, addresses, some private information, those kind of things, and it'll just look like a blacked out section. So if you look at the Fast and Furious documents, for example, the entire thing's blacked out, which is awesome.
Dan?
Yes?
Somehow that I got lost in the beginning, but you're at TexasWatchdog.org.
TexasWatchdog.org/NC is NC. Yeah, and that's the list of all of these resources that our old reporter trainer put together. So this is very, very, very helpful. It's just a way that you guys can go back and revisit all the stuff we're talking through today. TexasWatchdog.org/NC. All right, the next one, followthemoney.org. How many of you are familiar with this site? This site is really cool. Follow the Money, these guys are actually based in Helena, Montana, of all places. And I went to their office, and it's just a handful of people in this funky little loft space, which they actually have in Helena, Montana. But it's a very, very cool site, and basically what it does is track spending in state politics. So spending on any campaign goes right into this site. So it doesn't track federal candidates, so you're not going to find your congressmen and senators and any of that here because those are all federal candidates. These are state level candidates, so your state senators, all of those guys, all of this money is going to be tracked through here. So let's find
Bobby Hale.
You can start. All right. Looking through this national overview, this is a big picture of state by state, how many people have spent money. It's a great way, so we'll start there. Explore, so you're going to go to the national overview. We'll click on South Carolina here, and you can see total dollars for candidates and committees, 17,019,813. So that's just your state level races. Your governor, no active candidates, obviously, there's not a campaign going on. Incumbents, not up for re-election. Party committees, so these are donations that have been made. House races, it gives you the breakdown of how many Senate races happened, all of that. Top contributors. If you want to know who's driving, who's dumping the money into your state at the state level. Grand Strand Business Association, Blue Cross Blue Shield, South Carolina. Palmetto Leadership Council, Progress Energy, AT&T. Mike Rose, independent contributor there, candidate contributions. So you have electric cooperatives in South Carolina spending money in energy and natural resources, trucking association, farm bureau. So these are all the top contributors within South Carolina politics. You have top industries. So clearly the first one is generally lawyers and lobbyists, party committees, candidates, self-finance, health professionals, insurance, business associations. And you can click on these and see. All right, Rice Joseph. There you go. Top spender. And you can actually look at the contributor summary here and see how much money he's given. So he's given a total of $26,000, 100% of his contributions to the Democrats. And it'll show you the breakdown, contributions by election status, incumbency. And you can do this for everyone in your state here. Now, if you want to look at
How did you get to this page again? I know.
followthemoney.org,
Right.
and then you click on National Overview,
Oh, okay.
and then
Okay, there we go.
South Carolina.
My old leaders don't follow.
That's okay.
So bear with me a minute.
That's okay. So who do we want to look up in South Carolina? Who are you interested in knowing where their money is coming from?
Bobby Hale.
All right. What's Bobby? What's his last name?
Harold.
H-A-R-R-E-L-L?
H-A-R.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's the first one.
All right. Here we go. Bobby Harrell. These are all the contributions here.
So David Duke gave money to him? I'm just kidding.
Let's see.
David Dukes.
Bobby Harrell Campaign Fund. Let's see. Candidates. Bobby Harrell. All right. So in his 2012 campaign district, he won. This is how many votes he got, how much he raised, and these are the contributors. So, did you see how I did that? I searched his name at the top. So at that top search bar on the home page there, search our data, I typed in his name, clicked on candidates. He's right there. And then this shows the breakdown every time he's run. So in 2012, I can click on See Details, gives the details of that race, and then right here it gives the top contributors. So the top one is the Republican Caucus of South Carolina. No surprise, they gave the maximum amount. South Carolina Association of Certified Public Accountants. AT&T, Jim Hudson Toyota, South Carolina Bankers, Farm Agents, David Duke, Linda Stern, Angela Perry. I don't know who a lot of these people are, but you might. You can do this for any candidate in your state. So run a search on their name, click on candidates, and you can find who gave them money, how much they gave them. And then you can click on that contributor, see who else they gave money to. So the South Carolina Republican Caucus, this is who they gave to. $10,000 to Republicans, no surprise. Bobby Harrell and Bruce Bannister. And they both won.
How much I can't read that. How much they give the Bobby Harrell?
$5,000.
Interesting.
And that's the maximum, I think. This is a really interesting site during campaign season.
Yeah.
Because you can find out who's spending money on the gubernatorial races, where that's going, who's funding these campaigns within primary candidates, all of that, figure out where that money's coming from. This was particularly interesting, for example, in Wisconsin during the Scott Walker disaster, to figure out where all the money was coming from. Where were the unions dumping their money? You can search for those unions and break down exactly where their money's going. Figure that out. So this is a really, really cool tool to be able to figure out, because people always ask, who's funding this? Who's funding this? This tells you at the state level. Yes, Bruce?
I've had some experience in federal campaign law, and so the laws are going to differ by state. But the one thing to keep in mind is, and I'm not familiar with the disclosure laws for South Carolina, but there's a dollar threshold. So if someone is contributing $5 every 3 days to a certain candidate, that won't necessarily show up. It's really a $200, $250 level. That's the federal level at least. So, for example, there was a big story with the Obama campaign in 2008. I think in 12 I saw it again, where they were getting a lot of under $250 donations by credit card, possibly out of country illegally, and it wouldn't show up on websites like this because it's under the threshold. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you might have to look at a series of $250 contributions from the same person and add it up over time, it won't be there in that lump sum because that's a way they figured out to kind of bypass disclosure rules.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions on followthemoney.org? That's a fun one, right? That's a fun one.
This is addicting.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's really addictive. When you start getting in and realizing how much money is dumped into education and healthcare specifically, it's crazy. So for your federal candidates, you can look at, I don't know what that was. Federal candidates, open secrets. How many of you are familiar with open secrets? This one's a little more popular than Follow the Money. This is federal candidates, so you can find out where money's going through Congress and the White House. And there's a lot more other stuff you can see. This is where you see earmarks. This is where you see all of that stuff come through. You can track bills through here. So, politicians. So let's look at one of your congressmen. Which congressman do we want to look up here?
Clyburn.
Clyburn. All right. James Clyburn. And I just searched for his name up there. Came right up. Here's the profile. Talks about his campaign. You can search by year. So if you, the drop down here, you can pick if you want to look all the way back to 98 or over his entire career. All of that's selectable through here. Cycle fundraising. This is how much was raised, how much was spent, how much cash on hand. So over $1 million cash on hand. Comcast, top contributor. Norfolk Southern, URS Corp, Bank of America, and Amgen. Industry, health professionals, electric utilities, pharmaceuticals, lawyers. Lawyers are always a big player. Talks about the average raised, how much he raised in each cycle. So it looks like he was able to raise less in 12 than in 8 and 10. But this does the same kind of thing for your federal candidates. It talks about if they have, their leadership pack. All that stuff is through here. Top 5 contributors. There's a shortcut menu up here. So if you just want to see total raised, all of that comes through. And you can do this for every candidate. Influence and lobbying. This is where you search by group. So if you want to look and see how much specific PACs are spending in elections. Political Action Committee, so you select a sector, or you can search for a PAC if you know their name right here. Do you have any PACs that play in your state that you want to look at? No? Lobbying is where you check out lobbyists, check out organizations, 527, super PACs, if you will. All of that stuff comes right through here. So Act Blue is the top heavy hitter, apparently, in organizations here. But it's Goldman Sachs, all of these groups, you can see the top contributors, who's donating money, who's spending it where. That all comes through here. This is where you're going to track your presidential campaign money. So if you want to find out who's donating to presidents, if you want to find out who's donating to your senators, all of this comes through here, and it's a lot smoother than Follow the Money as far as how you search, because you just type in a name and click on it. But it gives the same kind of information, and it's pretty in-depth. And occasionally they even do an analysis piece of it, so they have an Open Secrets blog, which talks about the actual information on their site. So their top story right now is Jesse Jackson has campaign cash to spare. Duke Energy's convention loan term donation, So this is, they do some analysis and talking about the stuff on the site. So this is a pretty cool site as well. It's an absolute essential during presidential campaign season if you want to keep an eye on who from your state is dumping money into these campaigns. All right, go back here. Legistorm. This one is pretty fun. This one talks about congressional staff and how they're paid, how much money they make, where they are. It talks about finance trips taken by members of Congress, gifts to Congress from foreign governments, all of that stuff has to be reported.
What did you
Which
say?
site
the name
is
of that?
Legistorm. Legistorm. .com.
N or M?
M. M. Storm.
M is in money.
Yep, M is in money. So this is where you can look. All right, so you're going to go people. So if you want to search by person or if you want to search by disclosures, this is where you find salaries, official expenses, trips, personal finance disclosures, and this covers all of Congress. So this is a really fun one too. I always like to look up Nancy Pelosi on this one. It's pretty fun. Nancy Pelosi, sorry.
Did you have papers to hand out that you didn't want to hand out? Maybe it includes all of these?
No, it doesn't include all this. That was just an agenda and stuff. But what includes all of this is texaswatchdog.org/NC. So write that down. That has all of these links, and you'll be able to find all of it through there.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
texaswatchdog.org/NC, and I'm breaking everything. That is the site that I'm clicking on all of this stuff from. So all of that information is on that site. So take that home with you, bookmark it, and you'll be able to go back to reference all of this. So, looking at Nancy Pelosi. And my internet is not clicking through here. All right. So they want me to spend money. Oh, sorry, I'm like hitting all these paywalls. All right, so staff. You can look here. This is where she pays her staff salaries, expenses. Shouldn't have to do that. They may have just changed their paywalls here.
She appears to have cut back. Time plus
Oh, there we go. All right. Trips. So trips approved, trips taken, top staff traveler. So that's probably the person that travels with her. So it tells you who sponsored the trip, the destination, the purpose, the cost. And this is by her staffers as well as her. So it talks about spoke on a panel, attended the Ideas Retreat, delivered a speech at Oberlin College, attended congressional forum on capital investment, risk management. Some of these, let's see, the more expensive ones. But this has a record of everywhere they've gone, what they've done, and who paid for it. Gifts. We can look at gifts. 6x9 handmade Afghan wool rug. Strand of black pearls.
Absolutely essential for any good.
3 dinners, 2 lunches, ground transportation, air transportation, Tokyo to Hiroshima. Estimated value not listened. Donated by Afghanistan, the Philippines, Italy, China. Earmarks. So you click earmarks here. Oakland Harbor, $41 million. Hamilton Airfield Wetlands Restoration, $14 million. But this is where it tracks by year from newest to oldest. What earmarks? So you can do all solo or ones that were co-sponsored with other members. So this is a really cool tool as well. It can get really fun if you really dive in and start looking. And it's got everybody. So this is all federal. So it's going to have all your congressmen, senators, governors, everybody. Many questions about legislation? And some of what these staffers make, like, let me just tell you, is totally crazy.
That's right. Lindsey Graham brings home the bacon, man.
All right, politicalpartytime.org. This site collects and categorizes invitations to congressional and presidential political fundraising events. So this talks about where the fundraisers are, who's expected to attend, often before they happen. You can view the array of invitations that are emailed and faxed by the dozen to lobbyists, political action committee representatives, and others around DC and the country. These fundraisers vary from small receptions to lavish getaways, and none of them are cheap.
What's the website?
Politicalpartytime.org. So, political money trail. From the early hours of the morning until late evening, politicians are breaking bread and sipping cocktails with donors. Sunlight's Party Time lets you know who's fundraising and where. So this is pretty fun because it talks about where the parties are, who's going, and they basically pull these invitations out and talk about it. So you can break this down. I think you can search by name. So let's look at Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
All right, he doesn't have any coming up because he's not campaigning right yet. Yes. So, and it tags them by name, so you can see which ones they're attending, not even just which ones are for them. So this was a Lindsey Graham fundraiser for Romney.
Who was his date?
Good question.
Take it easy.
So these are $25,000 late dinners, $10,000 VIP reception, and then a $25,000 dinner. So that's pretty cool. But it'll show this week's fundraisers, parties for St. Patty's and Obama. So now we're on Olympia's nose page. Anyway, it's really cool. It's linked to Open Congress. It's all run by the Sunlight Foundation. They run both Open Congress. Yes?
One more kind of legal note, and I'm sure most of you know this, but and Jesse Jackson Jr. is not a good example of what I'm about to say, but he is also a good example of what happens when you do it wrong. These fundraisers that Tabitha is talking about, where they're $10,000 and $25,000, they are legally supposed to go into the campaign fund of the candidate. So the candidate is not allowed to use that money for things like what Jesse Jackson Jr. used them for, fur coats and Rolex watches and whatnot. So I think sometimes, and this is all post-Watergate stuff, laws. Sometimes I think there's a perception in the media that these fundraisers are going right into the pockets of the candidates. And while that may be true in the case of Jesse Jackson Jr., he'll get caught and he'll go to jail. But the law is that these candidate committees and these political action committees are highly regulated. As you can see, they are fully disclosurable now. So I just thought it was important to point out when Lindsey Graham's going to a cocktail party for 25 grand, he's not getting in his campaign list. I'm not defending Lindsey Graham.
So if you want to look at it by calendar and see dates, you can look this week. We've got Common Ground PAC, Governor Christie, Senator Republican Senatorial Committee. So let's click on that one. Tells you when, February 12th, 2013, 8:30 a.m. National Republican Senatorial Committee, it tells you where it is. NRSC Coffee. Other lawmakers mentioned, Orrin Hatch. Contribution information, so $15,000 annually or $1,000 for that event. distribution paid for by NRSC. And then it actually gives you a copy of the invitation that was faxed around DC. Tim Scott, here we go. Senator Tim Scott at Bistro B, $1,000 for a pack, $500 for an individual, $2,000 for a co-host. So this is a cool site just to kind of see who's hanging out with who. Housing and urban development audits. This one is pretty fun. You can keep track of how HUD is using your money and where it's going. So this, keep up with the audits, you can keep up with the waste, basically. Not that anything is ever really done about the audits, but you can change that and talk about it. So, HUDOIG, Housing and Urban Development Department, Officer of Inspector General. So, this talks about FOIA. So this tells you, for them specifically, how to submit a request. You can generate your letter, submit it through here. We talked about the FOIA letter generator. But audits, audit reports, sign up to be notified. So you can actually click on a notification and set it up so that whenever they post a new report, you get that report so you can look at it. Here's the most recent one, it's from February 13th. And it'll publish a PDF that's taken its time to load. So, to Kara Newton, Cole, Acting Chief Human Capital Officer, introduction, methodology and scope. So it talks about our evaluation was conducted in DC between this date and this date. We reviewed applicable contracts, monthly reports, gives you the contact information for each program, the background, then breaks down here. So results of review. Phone line operations. HUD could not determine whether its toll-free phone lines functioned at an optimal level. Although the phone lines were initiated with OCHCO, they were monitored by each individual program. It goes into the specifics of each thing. They review these phone lines. That's a little boring. Recommendations, so then it gives what they recommended actually happen. Auditee comments and evaluation. This one's doesn't look like they found anything too exciting in this one. But these come out really regularly. So this is where you're going to see all the exciting waste that happens in your city. So this is one for the city of Albany.
And that was urban?
Housing and Urban Development. So it's hudoig.gov. And this is the official government website that posts their internal audits from the Office of Inspector General. And the summary right here are the results of the audit. Administration of the CDBG-R program was not always effective or efficient. Imagine that. But these are kind of fun to be able to go in and find out all of the breakdowns that they locate internally and then follow up, see what they've done about it. They make these recommendations. How much of this has been implemented? Probably none of it, because we know how efficient they are. Your state auditor. This is important. We have the North Carolina one listed here. However, this is your South Carolina one. Office of the State Auditor. You click local, right here it gives you a link. This gives you your annual summary of spending, and you can pick up the year and the agency. I always like to do education. There we go. That's one of my favorites. So click here, allocations, funds other than appropriated. This is where you're going to dive into your state spending. your state auditor, which calls out where these people are wasting money, scholarships and loans, supplies and materials, taxes, transportation, travel, everything within the education department right here is broken down. So this is huge. This is where your auditor is going to post all of those breakdowns, all of that waste, all of those reports. This is your monthly detail. So the year is a little overwhelming because they spend a lot of money in a year. Annual summary, monthly detail. So that's all I did is click monthly detail, fiscal year. Let's look for December, just because. Agency. Let's look at higher ed. But you can see very specifically, they spent this much money. So I click through to contractual services from the Higher Education Committee. Catered meals, data processing, freight express, other contractual services. Francis Marion, Claflin, Columbia. So you get really, really specific information through here, and all of the audits are posted.
How'd you get from state auditor to comptroller general? You way fast for me, by the way.
Okay, I went to the site, osa.sc.gov, clicked on the only link right in the middle of the page there, South Carolina Comptroller's Controller's Office.
You know, you're going too fast, ma'am.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Where are you from?
North Carolina,
Yeah, right north.
Can you talk a little faster, South Carolina?
Office of the State Auditor. So that's the main page. Google South Carolina Auditor, this is the page that'll come up. Click there. The only link in the middle of the page is the Comptroller General's office.
Okay.
Right there. State Auditor. There's his information. Medicaid engagements, so these are your Medicaid reports. State engagements. There's a whole bunch of these.
It's good stuff.
State government spending transparency, that's where we were before. The Comptroller General's office. And employment, if you want to work there. You can also search by vendor if you're digging into a particular company, which is pretty fun. So this is a really good resource for in-depth state information on spending. Yeah, I need for back here. All right, stimulus. This one's always fun. Recovery.gov. How many of you have been to recovery.gov? Figure more of you have. This is really fun. This still tracks where stimulus money is going. So, diving into here, this is where you can technically report things. I'm sure that they are all over all of your reports on waste when it goes directly to them. But you can do the same thing that we did before, where you go recovery.gov, has a big map right here. Click on South Carolina. You can drill down on stimulus projects in your state. Assuming it loads. All right, stay in South Carolina. So, total funds awarded, $4.6 billion. List of recipients, how much they were awarded, and then you can click on details. And you'll notice that most of them alright, that's dragging. All right, so this is the Abbeville Housing Authority. This tells you completion. So it looks like they've actually completed their projects that they were awarded money for, amazingly enough. Tells you it's awarded, received, and expended. So it looks like they got it in, they received it, and they clearly spent it. But any project, and I mean, they're $4.6 billion, I said, worth of projects. And it breaks it down. These are all of the recipients, and there's a whole ton of them. And you can search for recipients and see who got it, just with the search function up here. Demolition and nuclear decommissioning, Department of Energy. Stainless steel, American Metals. Computer research. Oh, that's an expensive one. That's the nuclear one. And they're not required to report as a prime recipient. So there are tons of great stories that you can find through here.
So according to the site, and I'm sure I'm wrong on this, but we were awarded $4 billion and we produced 1,300 jobs.
Per quarter.
For a quarter.
You believe that?
Sounds
They
about
should
right.
just give them money and they would be better off, you know.
Yep. It's very true.
That's a
It's very true. Yeah, jobs by quarter. So, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. But we found some great stories through here. When it's a slow news day in a state, people go here. And we'll find things like, University of Colorado was awarded, I think it was roughly $3 million to research a glow-in-the-dark spider. So if you dig deep on this stuff, you can find a lot of really fun waste. A lot of the university stuff is really fun. This. All right. But, I mean, obviously you have to think the site is run by the people that gave the money out. So they're going to try not to humiliate themselves too much. I don't know how much I trust some of it, but it's really fun to look at the money and where. So basically it's a big fat I told you so site. This whole site is a big fat I told you so to those of us that actually saw that giving $1 trillion to people and saying, here, go for it. It's earmarked all to hell. There's crazy stuff in here, all of it state by state. And it'll tell you exactly where it all went, when it went there, and who spent it. Labor organization reports. This is fun for digging into big labor's finances. So you can get all of their, because all of these labor organizations have to, at the end of the year, like most companies, publish their financials. So all of their stuff has to be public. So your teachers' unions, I'm sorry? Most. I mean, some are exempt, clearly. But all of this stuff, this is a great labor resource if you're into union battles, which I know you guys have had some of. You're going to be able to order your reports through here, view other reports, collective bargaining agreements, constitutions and bylaws. I did a lot on education, so I'm really into the education piece of this. But the bylaws on some of this stuff is insane. These union contracts, their constitutions. I mean, it's really crazy. So being able to really look into that, if you're trying to nail somebody to the wall and get something through or whatever, spend some time on this site. Compliance assistance, regulatory library newsroom. So this will actually, annual reports. And a lot of this stuff, I mean, obviously there's so much information on these. I don't want to click through everything. I want to get through it and leave you guys plenty of time. But spend time on these. If you're interested in something in particular, if you're interested in your state elections, if you're interested in the labor stuff, if you're interested in education stuff, spend some time clicking through all of these resources. You'll be amazed at the kind of stuff you can find. And if you can't find it, just clicking around and looking at things will trigger questions for you. If you can't find it on that site, send them a FOIA request and say, hey, I really would like to see this. I know that it exists because I saw this, and I would like more details from you on where that money was spent. And if you see something, you see that there's spending that happened, send them a FOIA request, and you can get even more detailed information on a lot of these things and drill it down.
Ma'am,
Yes.
you said labororganization.com or org?
No. It's labor organization reports, so it's dol.gov. I would just Google here. It's a kind of a complicated URL. If you go to the texaswatchdog.org/NC and scroll down, it's under the stimulus information and audits. And you'll see a labor organization reports. It's dol.gov/ohm/reg/compliance/ So you don't want to write all that out, but if you go to the Texas Watchdog thing, the link is right there. Did you find it? Bruce, can you help him find it?
Yeah, where?
Just go to texaswatchdog.org/NC and find the labor organization reports.
I'm just having trouble.
In the hat right here.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Government Attic. What this does,
What'd you just say? I'm sorry.
governmentattic.org. Basically, these provide, so all those FOIA requests I'm talking about, most of the time, they're going to be really complicated about it. They're not going to give you digital copies. They're going to make you pay because they'll have to print everything, and they won't let you come in. Generally, they're not going to let you take pictures of the documents. They're not going to let you just scan them and dump them onto a thumb drive. They try to make it complicated as much as they legally can. They're not supposed to, but they're legally within their limits to tell you that they're not going to give you an electronic copy. Government Attic does let you do that. So all of these FOIA requests that have been filed, it posts as PDFs. So somebody else already got this and then posted an electronic version. So if you're searching for something and maybe it's something you think that somebody else may have already filed for at some point, you can use the search within this site and see. Maybe you don't have to go through the process of filing. So Department of Agriculture interagency emails and memoranda regarding pink slime. So, yeehaw. Somebody already FOIA'd that, so we have all of that documentation. Somebody's posted it right here. So if you are interested in the pink slime, there you go. Department of Treasury, Departmental Offices, Operations, FOIA backlog reports. List of investigations closed by the DOJ. Defense Technical Information Center, Federal Bureau of Investigation file, Bureau War Plans from 1948 to 56. Somebody has to know that. 35 U.S. Department of State Stealth Study Guides. So, it has an insane amount of stuff. Amtrak operating rule books. Tennessee Valley Authority expenditures on outside legal counsel.
I bet that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, FBI monograph, Soviet use of the polygraph in 1981. Because somebody needed to know that for something at some point. So, this is great if you have something that, just run a quick search if it's something that you think is going to be complicated to get or something that somebody's already done. A lot of people have probably written about the pink slime or researched the pink slime. It's cool that that already exists. Then you don't have to do it, pay for it, deal with it because they have, and go through the process. And they've got the search function is actually really good. It's a Google, custom search, so, which is pretty cool. So basically it just catalogs everything that we're talking about getting. FBI reports. So, somebody dies. you want to find out more. Generally, they can't be open cases. You can't FOIA an open FBI case generally. They don't want to give you that information. However, stuff that's closed, somebody passes away, whatever, there's always those investigations that pop up. There's always stuff that you want to know. They may have a really interesting FBI file. You can request that. So fbi.gov/FOIA. And it walks you through it. It gives you, they have a specific phone number set aside for these requests that you can call and talk directly to the FBI to figure that out, so you don't have to navigate it on your own. And from what I understand, I've never actually filed an FBI FOIA request, but from what I understand, they're actually pretty helpful. They actually do talk you through it and figure it out there and give you, they give you a lot of information on how to do it, what's available, the vaults, all that stuff is all on the right, so you can navigate through records available at request with the overview. It gives you a sample letter, and then some expectations. How long does it take? What is it, what will you receive? If you're not satisfied, how do you appeal it? Say they didn't give you what you asked for, I want more. Or you left this out, or you redacted something that probably shouldn't have been redacted. Figure it out. You can appeal, and you can do that with any FOIA request, by the way. If you get a FOIA request and it doesn't have the information that you want, they mess something up, something doesn't look right, you know that there's more information there, you can appeal that request and say, actually, no, I need more than that.
I'm going to write the website on these.
Oh, sweet. I thought we were going to go Glenn back for a minute. I got excited. Awesome. Me?
Yeah.
Not really.
I was gonna say, no crying allowed.
No crying. I'm not generally a crier.
Oh.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Now you have to raise it. Here, let me. Hold on a second. Cool.
Is the NC state in North Carolina?
It is, but these are all federal, these are all national resources. NC was.
You put SC in there when it didn't work.
I don't think he put one together for South Carolina. This is he built this list of sites for a training that we did in Raleigh.
Oh, okay, yeah.
A few months ago. Yeah, this was for a training we did in Raleigh a few months ago. But all the resources are the same. So and Trent couldn't be here, so I was like, all right, we will use your resources because it's easier to be able to give you guys a website to be able to take this home and look at. So everything that we just talked about was on here. All right. Do we have questions? Are we confused? Is there anything that we want to dive deeper in? We have some time to play around. So is there somebody that you guys want to research? Is there something you guys want to know? Let's walk through something here. Is there a candidate? Is there somebody that won? Is there a union that's particularly troubling? Is there...
You always go back to Bobby Harrell.
Yeah.
Everything you want on Bobby Harrell.
Give me the story on Bobby Harrell. I feel like I need to be in the loop.
He is corruption. With a picture of corruption in South Carolina, you know, the dictionary, it's him.
He's the South Carolina Speaker of the House.
Okay.
And he's for the past year been dogged by ethics complaints, using his private plane, using his tax donations. And the reporters, including Rick Brundage, who's going to be here speaking to us at 11, have been digging into these things. And he's just now having to face the music. They supposedly are supposed to go as legislators before the House Ethics Committee for any ethics issues. Of course, of the 5 members, now expanded to 10 members of the House Ethics Committee, they've all received money from Bobby Harrell's PAC. In addition to that, he appoints them all. In addition to that, the legislators in South Carolina appoint the judges. So just this week, one of our watchdog organizations filed a complaint with the Attorney General to investigate Bobby Harrell's ethics issues, and that was put over to SLED, which is our South Carolina law, something or other. So Bobby Harrell may be meeting his cup up and soon, but yeah, he's absolutely the picture of corruption here in South Carolina.
All right. So I went back to followthemoney.org because that's where you're going to find your state level legislator information. Like I said, Open Secrets, any of those other sites that we talked about, Legistorm, those all cover Congress and federal candidates. So followthemoney.org is actually very unique in that they focus and drill down only on state. So that's where you're going to start. If you want to dig up stuff on Bobby Hale, that's where you're going to need to find that money.
Would it be worthwhile before you get into specific tools, given what you just heard, if you were going to put together a strategy, how would I go about, what would I go looking for? What would be the first few questions you would be seeking the answer?
Okay. Well, that depends. All right, so you say corruption.
Well, Karen just described to you the situation. You want to be a citizen journalist, and you want to dive in deep. What's your strategy? You've got a whole bunch of tools in front of you, but what do you do with those tools?
Well, from what I've heard, and just from what Karen said,
I've been feeding Bruce the stories as they happen.
If I were to look into this, the first questions I would ask would be, the first thing that caught my attention would be the private plane, who was the company or what was the organization? Did that organization benefit from legislation or government grants or something like that? So to me, from what Karen just said, that would be the first avenue I would go to find out, why was he on a private plane? Was that, a favor for something that happened in the legislature months later? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just saying
Okay.
that.
So what I've done now is I'm looking at an article to familiarize myself with the story and figure things out.
The Nerve has a great one.
What?
The Nerve has the best article.
Actually, Tabitha, I would say just in what Bruce mentioned about the plane, it's not a private plane, it is his plane.
It's his
So
plane?
don't go looking into a place.
Okay.
Because he wasn't on someone else's plane.
What he's
So
doing,
he owns a private plane.
what he's doing though, I think he's using the plane for other people and then paying himself for it.
Well, you don't know
Paying
that.
himself to use it.
You don't know that, but the thing you do know is it is his plane.
Yeah, it's his plane.
Okay. So I'm like trying to navigate and figure out specifically because it's hard to say what to look for if I don't know the story. So I would start with, all right, he has a plane. We're trying to figure out who's on it. Do you know who's on the plane? Who's he flying? Do we know that?
He flies himself.
But it says he's, okay, but he's just flying himself on his private plane.
I mean, he flies other people, but he uses it go from Charleston to Columbia.
Okay.
And then to other places where he might be asked.
Okay.
But basically, instead of the car, he flies his plane. He says it's cheaper for the taxpayers.
To answer the question, the place to start is with the South Carolina Policy Council, because they've been looking into this for 6 months.
Actually, Rick, who's going to be here, can probably answer all these specific.
Yeah, I would let him walk through this specifically because he's familiar with it. Like, I'm trying to familiarize myself with it on the fly, and I'm not that good. But that might be something interesting because Rick's going to have plenty of time for question and answer stuff. So maybe we have him walk through, since he's familiar with it, where he gets his information on that kind of stuff as well. That's something that would be really, really cool.
I think he's flying John Dillinger, Al Capone, and Pretty Boy Floyd.
So yeah, I mean,
you know what we could look at? We have a special election race that is currently going on right now, that Tim Scott's seat. We could maybe look up a couple of those candidates. That's kind of relevant.
Yeah. Who's candidate?
Well, the top 3 ones that I know about is Larry Grooms, Mark Sanford, Curtis Bostic, and Chip Limehouse. That's 4. So
Peter McCoy.
So yeah.
There's 16 of them.
There are 16 of them, and you can't rank them. So other than Mark Sanford, who's clearly.
So let's look up Chip Limehouse. I think that was
Who?
Chip Limehouse.
All right, so Chip Limehouse.
Wouldn't shock me if he's saying.
Good, South Carolina. Let's see, candidates.
They love him.
All right, so what I did, follow the money, searched for Chip Limehouse, clicked on candidates. Shows he's been active since 1996. Now, is this a good guy or bad guy?
Depends on what part of the state you live in.
All right.
Yeah, your district, right?
All right, so he has clearly not a money machine. $100,000. But that's something that you also want to look at. If you're looking at viability of primary candidates and you're trying to figure out who has money.
Can you see how much cash he has on hand?
You go to SC Votes, you can find out
all that stuff out.
Yeah, it doesn't do that on Follow the Money,
You can,
but your election commission probably should tell you that.
it's the State Ethics Commission. All the campaign committee contributions, the campaign accounts and so on, all that stuff is online.
Yeah, so what I've done, SC Votes, this is a cool site, I've never been on here before.
Yeah, but that's not gonna get you what you need. You wanna go to ethics.
Go where?
Go over to the ethics.
Yeah, well that's where I am, campaign finance and ethics.
Well, you're on the State Election Commission website. You have to go to the State Ethics Commission website.
Yeah, but it takes you there. That's where it takes
There's a
you.
link. There's a link.
Ethics.sc.gov, it takes you over there. So I navigated there from SC Votes. If you go to candidates, campaign finance and ethics, state ethics, federal election commission, campaigns. So this is actually very helpful. This gives you all of the information on South Carolina campaign practices. So electronic filing, it gives you the report deadlines, contribution limits for statewide and local candidates. Candidates may not accept more than the following amounts from political parties during an election cycle. Definitions to know. That's very helpful stuff if you're looking for when reports come out and those kind of things. You want to know your deadlines. If you're watching a race closely, know when that deadline is. Talk about if they're missing deadlines. If you're looking for that number, know that that's when you can expect it if you're covering things. So,
You can actually search by candidate and look up the reports.
Yep. So public reporting. This is a very cool site. So State Ethics Commission, ethics.sc.gov. Talks about the penalties, public reporting. So this is where you're going to find your public disclosure stuff. Information on all forms filed with the State Election Commission. All right, so we're searching. It's not very. You can also file complaints here. So if somebody is missing deadlines or not reporting things they need to report, this is where you file that.
And they do follow up.
There is an investigation, what is a hearing, what disciplinary actions can be taken, when can it be amended, what happens next. File a complaint form, so it gives you your complaint form that you can print out and mail over. Okay, so I clicked through. Complaints. How did I get there? Public reporting, individual financial reports,
Yes,
and then candidate reports.
yes.
And that's how you're going to find your state level.
Then it'll ask you for the name of the election race.
All right, so candidate last name, Limehouse. office, stays, he's Senate or House? Senate.
House.
Oh,
Oh, House?
yeah. U.S. House.
No, South Carolina House.
Yeah, it's State House for 2013. District, do we know what district?
Tabitha,
Yeah.
is that going to show him, because he's running for federal office.
He's running for Congress,
Right.
isn't he?
Oh,
So
right.
for 2013.
You're right, then no.
It's a federal office, 2012 is state
Okay,
house.
so that's right, he's running for U.S. House. I'm thinking
Yeah,
he's
I think
state.
he's currently
So
currently in the State House.
Right.
So this is where you go to open Congress. Because it's a federal seat, not a state seat.
Open.
And this is Sunlight Foundation again, and they are amazing.
It may be kind of difficult given this is a special election and with the filing deadlines. And
It's
everything.
probably too early still.
You may not get any report.
Yeah, I don't think they have that information yet.
Sorry, that was a bad example.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But it pointed out a good thing. You want to make sure you're looking in the right place. So, Chip Limehouse, I was thinking he's running for state, not running for State House. He's running for U.S. House. So, you're not going to find it through Follow the Money, and you're not going to find it through South Carolina ethics site, because that only deals with South Carolina. Now, the federal candidates, you'll go to Open Secrets and Open Congress. And Open Congress is, these are all Sunlight Foundation. And are you guys familiar with the Sunlight Foundation? They focus completely on transparency. So a lot of the sites that we've covered today are Sunlight Foundation sites. They are nonpartisan. They do focus on accountability and transparency. They do a lot of really, really cool stuff. Political Party Time was through them. Sunlight Academy, PolitiWhoops, that one's really fun too. Have you guys paid attention to that one before? PolitiWhoops is deleted tweets.
Oh, where's that? Deleted tweets. Oh.
PolitiWhoops. So, P-O-L-I-T, PolitWhoops. So, P-O-L-I-T-W-O-P-S, PolitWhoops.
Is that .com?
It's PolitWhoops.sunlightfoundation.com. So, if you want to see South Carolina Democrats, oh look, clearly James Clyburn was butt tweeting. That's pretty funny.
That's just his vocabulary.
A lot of them are just mistakes or double tweets or that kind of stuff, but sometimes you can find really funny stuff, especially like when somebody says something completely ridiculous and everybody freaks out and then they delete it. It lives forever on this site. And you can search by office, by state, by party, and filter. So Trey Gowdy, Nikki Haley, Joe Wilson, but it automatically catalogs everything, no matter how quickly. If they have it up for 5 seconds and delete it, it's categorized forever and lives on the site. So that's pretty fun to check every once in a while. But Sunlight Foundation is definitely a great resource, and they cover...
Is that just for federal offices, the political?
No.
Okay.
Well, it might be.
Okay.
The thing about Twitter is that a lot of state officials haven't really figured it out yet.
Right. Yeah.
So it's getting there. They're getting better at it. And we'll talk about this more in the social media section later. But going after state officials is a lot more effective on social media because they're not used to that. So being able to hit them on stuff, they flip out and they will delete stuff faster and they will call you crying and go to the press, and it's good. Ask me how I know. So Open States is another great one that's just gives you basic information on your state. So being able to find legislators, search upcoming legislation. So seeing what's coming up in your site or in your state, those kind of things. So openstates.org. And this is
Search for legislation by topic and state, or do you have to do bill numbers?
I will show you. All right, so the South Carolina, 46 senators, 123 representatives, 15 committees, in the Senate, 11 in the House. Bills, this tells you what's been recently passed, recently introduced. In the Senate, in the House, recently passed, recently introduced. And then this is stuff on the last, all right, so this is the current session. Recent action. So if you're tracking a particular bill, you can look at bills certain people have sponsored. So if you want to find a sponsor of a bill and you're trying to go after, an incumbent, look at them and look what bills they've sponsored. Types of bills, so joint resolution, concurrent resolution, whatever. Subjects, so yes, agriculture and food, animal rights, wildlife, budget spending and taxes, business and consumers, drugs, education, energy. So it's got a huge number of subjects here. And you can search by subject. Both chambers, Senate and House. So if you're not sure if it's in the Senate or the House, both chambers will search for stuff coming down the pipeline on government reform. Submit. There you go. And then you can follow. You can actually follow the bill. If you can set up an account and follow the bill, you can view the latest iteration of the text. This has the original document. And then it'll take you back to the actual South Carolina legislature site where you can find it. So that's openstates.org. That's a great way to track stuff that's happening in your state. And this is all Sunlight Foundation. So if you want to find fun stuff, just go to sunlightfoundation.org, and all of that stuff comes directly through them.
So I just did a quick search for Limehouse in there.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to introduce a piece of legislation every time someone dies. So honestly, if you look at the last week, every day in February, he introduced something expressing the sorrow of the General Assembly because this person died.
All right. Keeping himself busy.
And something about honoring a barbecue. I guess that's okay.
How did you find that?
I went to
Open State and then search for Chip Limehouse.
Okay.
And there's I went to the legislators bar at the top, and then it lists, if you went to South Carolina, then legislators, it lists Limehouse in alphabetical order. And I just looked at the bills he had sponsored just as a starting point.
And that is why our legislature is in session more than any other.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing.
6 months out of every year.
It looks like he
All the time.
looks like he issues bills like press releases.
That's crazy. Okay. So we covered a lot of stuff. Like I said, spend time clicking through it. You'll figure out pretty quickly. I mean, you can drill down and just start looking at stuff. And you never know what you're going to find. Run searches on people's names. That was pretty entertaining, actually. That would make a really good blog post. Chip Limehouse. Honoring people with legislation every single day for the month of February. That's a great March 1st post.
Well, maybe exaggerated. Maybe it wasn't every single day. It seemed like every time someone died.
Yeah, so, but when in doubt, go to Sunlight Foundation. Like I said, I just clicked through follow the unlimited money. This is where you're going to track Super PAC information. So reporting.sunlightfoundation.com. Super PACs, how much they've spent, contributions, cash on hand, filing date, which is the last time that they've actually filed. Everybody, look at that. It's like every Super PAC in existence right here. Find out how much they've done. So I think we can take, if you guys want a few minutes to go to the bathroom, whatever, before he speaks. Okay, let's do that. We'll take 8 minutes.
Donuts are in the kitchen.